Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2001 comedy film Legally Blonde. Now, this is one of those films that my mom was a fan of and actually had on DVD along with the sequel. So I had honestly seen this a handful of times growing up. It was never really one of my personal favorites, but I didn't hate it. It was enjoyable enough. So it was one of those movies where my mom decided to watch it and I wanted to spend time with her. I would watch it with her because it wasn't like one of those things where it felt like I was having my teeth being pulled, or it was something that was really not a lot of fun to watch. There are better comedies and there are better films to me that have a similar plot with a similar bubbly lead like Clueless, but you could honestly do a lot worse than Legally Blonde. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, I would like to give a special shout out to Steven for requesting this review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The link to all three is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Legally Blonde is directed by Robert Luketic, and this is actually his first film. Prior to this, he directed a, I guess, critically acclaimed short film called Tiziana Bubarini. That is the actual title. I am not messing with you. And it's like a musical comedy. I watched it, and I don't get the hype. I thought it was honestly pretty lame, but I guess he got enough eyes on that particular short to get a lot of people in the industry to put him on their list of potential directors to direct different projects, and Legally Blonde wound up becoming one of them. And I guess because this was a film that was kind of a shot in the dark pick for the studio, they were like, sure, why not have the guy who directed Tiziana Bubarini direct this movie? And I personally feel for a first time filmmaker, not a bad first time out. Are there some moments where you can kind of tell that this director is learning on the fly? Yes. You can see some moments of genuine growing pains here, but I still feel that for the most part, the direction, it's full of that bubbly energy that you need and you're looking for when it comes to this kind of film. It has some solid, decent framing when it comes to the shots. It's not too crazy with the pans and the zooms and tracking shots and other sort of camera techniques, but it has its moments where it does go outside the norm and outside the box, and it legitimately is a rather decent, adequate, solid job when it comes to the direction. It's not something that is probably going to stick with you that much. It's not going to linger with you, but it's also not something that is going to upset you. It's not the kind of direction that really holds a film back. It holds it together fine. And I think he definitely does a good job getting the most out of the film's lead, because Reese Witherspoon is just such a uh, j- electric and kinetic personality in this. And the director does a good job in terms of matching what she's bringing to the film. And actually, in a lot of ways, elevating it and enhancing it, and really putting her in the best spots for her to get the most laughs out of the few scenes that actually do provide any laughs, and also to get the most out of other sequences that are supposed to be more emotional or romantic or so on. So it's one of those films directing wise where I think it's just dynamic enough for it to work overall, despite there being some kinks. Now, it's written by Karen McCullough Lutz and Kirsten Smith, and it's based on this a book of the same name by Amanda Brown. Now, Amanda Brown is actually a lawyer. She went to law school at a Ivy League school, and she wrote the book based on her experiences with colleagues and classmates, excuse me, from that particular school. And she was a blonde. She was into Glamour magazine and all these other sort of things that stereotypical I guess, pretty girls were into at the time, and in a lot of ways still are, fashion and makeup and all this other stuff. And so, because of her appearance, she was judged rather harshly by her peers. And so, she decided to write a book based upon her experiences. And that's what ultimately became Legally Blonde. Uh, and I think it actually was Elle magazine, which was the one that she was really into, which explains why the lead character's name in the book and in the film is Elle, because she was really a big fan of Elle magazine. The screenplay to me, it's good, but I don't think it's great. And the main reason for that is, as a comedy, it's not really funny enough. Like, there's some moments that'll make you chuckle, some moments that'll make you smirk. There's not a lot of like laugh until your sides hurt kind of scenes. In fact, a lot of the moments that made me laugh really didn't have to do with Elle most of the time. They were like her friends at the sorority, or Paulette, because a lot of the stuff involving her it really, and I think this might just be a case of timing, but it did feel kind of like Clueless leftovers. Same kind of attempts at comedy, same attempts at trying to have this character who's really into fashion and makeup, and being with the right boy, and seems to be really superficial, but there's actually more to her, that kind of thing. And I don't know, it just kind of felt like it was a little bit of diminished returns, because it felt like such a similar character, and I felt it just worked so much better with Alicia Silverstone's character in Clueless. And the whole thing with her boyfriend, that didn't work at all for me, because that character was very paper thin. And whatever he was doing wasn't funny. Warner Huntington III. And so, yeah, the whole stuff with her, oh, I'm a president of a sorority, and I think I'm gonna get proposed to by my boyfriend, but then he breaks up with me, and then I decide to go and enroll in Harvard Law School in order to get back with my boyfriend. But then conveniently she falls in love with this other guy, uh, and that leads to her ultimately forming a relationship with him. But I will give the script credit for this, because this is not very common. So a lot of the stuff with Emmett, Luke Wilson's character, it's not really as, uh, um I don't know if I wanna use in your face because I think that's kind of an extreme way to describe this, but it's a similar kinda thing. Like, it's not as upfront about it in terms of her relationship with him. It's definitely insinuated that they are into one another and that there's some sparks there, but it's not really something that is at the forefront. It's kind of in the background, which was different. And instead, it focused more on actually this on-screen romance with Paulette and her crush, who is this UPS guy, played by Bruce Thomas. And so instead, it focused on that and Elle helping her friend Paulette get the self esteem that she needed to be able to ask him out. And of course, there is still some stuff involving Elle and Emmett, but it's not like there's a lot of sex scenes between the two. Not that I think that was necessary, but there's really not a lot of stuff of them dating, going out. Like there's a little bit, but a lot of it is just kind of a work relationship kind of thing because he works with Professor, I believe, yeah, Professor Aaron Callahan, who is the guy who's responsible for setting up this internship that Elle ultimately gets a slot in, which is why she's able to be involved with this actual murder case later on in the plot. And to be honest, all of the stuff involving Elle trying to fit in at the college is okay, but that is just very cliched kind of stuff. I know it's based on a true story, but the way that it's written in the script, it doesn't really feel like anything that's that unique or new or fresh when it comes to its take on it. Oh, she looks like a bimbo and a Barbie, and then everybody at the school is laughing at her and making fun of her, and she forms an enemy, which is this girl named Vivian, who's dating Warner Huntington the Third, her boyfriend, and so there a lot of the plot is about her trying to win Warner back, but then she eventually realizes that she's not really necessarily meant to be with him, and that's a good thing. But it takes her a long time to come to that realization, though, for somebody who is so smart. And I know there's that stuff prior to her even going to the school where she's overcoming the odds and getting the right grades, and she creates the video in order to get into Harvard, which is very titillating. And it was done that way on purpose, and I'd probably say that's one of the few biggest laughs that I got out of the film, is just how absurdly over the top that admission video is. Apparently, it was supposed to be even more crazy, because in the original script, they had a cameo from Judge Judy, of all people, but they couldn't get her to do the movie, so then they had to cut that out. But yeah, there is some fun to be had with the college stuff, but a lot of it is prior to her getting to the college. Once she gets to the college, I mean, it's just the typical, oh, she's having a hard time fitting in. And then eventually finds a way to uh, uh, figure things out. Because initially, she's not only having a hard time fitting in, she's not really studying things properly. She's distracted by other things, and then she focuses up and then becomes one of the best students in the class, and then gets this position as an intern on Professor Callahan's team of potential lawyers for this murder case. And the murder case involves this model who is the head of like this exercise DVD empire, which is similar to like the same sort of exercise videos that Jane Fonda was well known for from back in the day. And because of the fact that this model, I believe it's, yeah, Allie Larter. She plays the character Brooke Taylor Wyndham. So Miss Wyndham is a Delta Nu, which is the same sorority as Elle. And she went to her exercise class. And so she cannot believe for 1 second that she's guilty of what she's being accused of. So she has to get an alibi. She does get the alibi from Miss Wyndham, but she keeps it a secret at the request of Miss Wyndham because it's all about something that could completely ruin her image and her reputation. She's known for being this exercise queen, and she wound up getting liposuction the day that her husband was murdered. And I think it was her husband. And her husband is this guy who has a daughter, or stepdaughter, who, for whatever reason, wasn't considered a prime suspect because of some story that she said about Miss Wyndham being covered in blood. A lot of this stuff involving the case itself was kind of clunky, and it actually has been criticized by a lot of people who actually know law, and not only just the specifics of the case, but also the way that Elle ultimately solves it in court, because there's a lot of stuff that she does that is technically illegal, but they got away with it for the sake of it being a movie. But it's definitely not something that you can do in an actual legal case. It's not proper procedure. The law stuff, the court stuff, it's all right, but it's not anything you haven't seen in other law-based comedies, and it's not particularly anywhere near as funny as something like the trial scene in Liar Liar. So a lot it's honestly kind of taken very seriously for the most part, other than how she gets to the conclusion in the end, which is something that's just so ridiculous. That involves the stepdaughter and her getting a perm, and then her like completely getting her story mixed up and talking about how, oh, she went in and washed her hair and she was in the shower when she heard the gunshots, but you're not supposed to do that when you get a perm. And that's what eventually causes the stepdaughter to crack. And then she reveals that she was the one that killed her father. And this is also at the point when Elle represents herself. Well, actually, she doesn't represent herself. She winds up taking over Callahan's position as the main defense attorney, because he winds up getting fired by Miss Wyndham because of the fact that he is unreliable, because she found out that Callahan was a creep and actually tried to sexually assault Elle, which that is also something that tonally that is just completely out of nowhere in this movie. This lighthearted, silly rom-com in a lot of ways, and then it's like, oh, hey, workplace sexual assault, like, yeesh. But it's it adds an extra dimension and dynamic to the script and gives it an extra added dose of realism. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I just have to admit it definitely is a little surprising when you look at the overall tone of the film prior to that particular moment. I mean, you got the whole stuff with bend and snap and then you have creepy guy trying to perv on L. And you have a third act which I don't like at all, which is another thing that really hurts this script. The third act that involves L, like, oh, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore because of what happened with that guy. And then it takes her going to get her nails done at her friend Paulette's place, at her nail shop, and she conveniently runs into one of her professors, uh, and that is what ultimately leads her to, I believe it's trying to remember. Yeah, it's Holland Taylor's character, Professor Stromwell. So she conveniently runs into Professor Stromwell, who just happens to be there, and then tells her, "Hey, you shouldn't leave and quit because of this guy." And then she's like, "Okay," and then decides to become the lawyer for Miss Wyndham. And there's this subplot involving this guy named David, who is like a nerdy, chubby guy, played by Oz Perkins of all people. Yes, the same guy who would go on to direct Longlegs. And there's a subplot about him and Elle trying to help him get some girls. And I think it's supposed to be comedic, but it just comes across as more weird to me. And the guy's kind of creepy. Like, it doesn't really paint him in a way that makes it seem like he does have that much endearing qualities or things about him that actually would make him a desirable mate for other women, or it doesn't really show anything that really provides this character with any sort of arc. He doesn't grow, he doesn't change his ways, he doesn't even change his appearance. She just fakes like she dated him, and then he gets all these hot women. I'm like, that is ridiculous. That is one of the most unrealistic things about this movie. And there's a fair amount of unrealistic things about this movie, but that's right up there. But there's just a lot of stuff about this script that it's very simple. And I think in some ways that works and that's fine. But I think in other ways, I really ultimately wanted a little more. If you're gonna be a rom com about a bubbly main character who's really going against all odds and excelling in a profession that people think she can't. It's something that even at the time was kind of stale because there have been so many comedies, so many other films that have had a very similar plot, and the only thing it manages to do to make it any different is that, oh, but she's a lawyer this time, or she goes to law school this time around. And it just kind of had this overall kind of bland vibe at times when it comes to the script and the story as a result. But what carries it is Elle is legitimately written as a genuinely likable character. She's engaging, she has a lot of personality, she has a lot of spunk. It's the kind of character that really is the glue that holds everything all together. And so I definitely have to give the screenwriters a lot of credit for making Elle Woods into a memorable character, despite the plot around her being not really the most memorable thing. But it does have a good message. that's another thing about it that I do think works really well with this script. It's inspiring in a way that I think people of all genders and ages can honestly connect with. It's an underdog story. It's a story about how, hey, you can be different, you can be who you are, and you can still succeed. And I think that is definitely something that I feel is rather timeless when it comes to a story and to uh, an overall message. So yeah, I do think it's a good script, but I don't think it's a great screenplay because honestly, I do feel there's a lot of stuff going on. There's some subplots that don't really go anywhere. The third act thing is really lame. And as a comedy, like I said, it's not really consistently funny. And if you're marketing yourself as a comedy, I think you really got to bring it. And there's some moments, but they're very scattered throughout the screenplay. Now, the cast, I think it's genuinely one of the brightest spots of the film for the most part. I think there are some performances here that are a bit weak, but you can't say in any capacity that Reese Witherspoon's performance is weak here as Elle Woods. She was excellent. She was bright, she was bubbly, she was definitely the best performer out of the movie. I know that there were other actresses that were considered, but in all honesty, none of them would really have fit this role as well. She does a great job portraying the airheaded nature of Elle, but also the sweet nature of this character, and really believably showing the smart side as well. I mean, I think that is something that really sounds easy in theory, but in reality, it's kind of a pretty difficult role to pull off because there's always different nuances and always different things. So she's got to have good comedic timing. She's got to be able to command the screen with a really strong on screen presence as the lead of the film. She's also got to be able to connect with the audience and make the audience sympathize with her when she's going through things and root for her in the end when it comes to her winding up overcoming the odds and getting her diploma at Harvard Law School and finding a way to win her case in the end. So yeah, I genuinely do agree with all the praise that she gets for this performance. It's really a lot of fun, and I think the main reason why I kind of like this movie, at least in an above average kind of way, is mainly because of Reese Witherspoon and a couple other people in the cast, but it's really in a large part because of her. She makes it above average. If it was anybody else, this would just be an average film for me, but she raises it up a notch. Now, Luke Wilson, I don't mind either as Emmett, but his character is kind of limited. There's large chunks of the movie where he's not even in the film. So he does the best that he can with what he has to work with. I think he has some good chemistry with Reese, and I do like his character that he plays. He seems like a guy who is a stand-up guy and really does have a crush on Elle, and there is a certain sort of, I don't know if cute is the right word to describe it, but there's a certain coyness there that really works, and he does a good job playing it off or playing it on screen. And yeah, I would say it's one of the better performances that he's had. Selma Blair is pretty solid as Vivian. I didn't mention the whole thing with her and how that culminated and how that ended in the script. Uh, but it ultimately ends with her character changing her ways and feeling bad and I think Selma did a good job showcasing those nuances of that character. It's not what I would consider to be one of my personal favorite performances of hers, but it still works. Matthew Davis, on the other hand, sucked. He was awful as Warner. The guy doesn't have any personality. He doesn't have any charm. He came across completely fake. Maybe that was the point. I don't know. It was not a good performance. I did not really feel that his performance was anywhere near on par with anyone else in this movie that had the same amount of screen time. He was easily the weakest part of this cast. It seems like he was cast mainly for his looks and not really for his acting ability, which is barely any at all. Uh, Victor Garber, he played a good, uh, I would probably say second antagonist as Professor Callahan. He did a good job playing a guy who tricked you into thinking he was a good, upstanding professor who meant well and was trying to get the best out of his students, and then you find out that he's a creep. So I think that definitely was a good performance because he showed both sides of the character equally as well. Jennifer Coolidge was a hoot, just a really fun, enjoyable character in this. You can see why she became a breakout fan favorite. This character, just based on this performance alone, very charming, very sweet in her own way. Honestly, good enough that you wanted more of Paulette, not less, which is what you ultimately did get in the sequel. Holland Taylor as Professor Stromwell, decent for the little screen time that she had. Same thing goes for Ollie Larter as Brooke, Wyndham, or Alana Ubach as Serena McGuire, or Jessica Coffell as Margaret Chapman. Um, Jessica Coffell and Alana Ubach were really they were scene stealers as Elle's friends. Um, really made the most out of the little bits of screen time that they had. Tons of energy, really a lot of fun to watch. And Linda Cardellini, who played Chutney Wyndham, the stepdaughter with the perm. I completely did not even recognize her. I was like, that's Linda Cardellini. I was like, okay, yeah, it is. It was an early role from her, and she did a good job with that. And I also want to mention Bruce Thomas and Raquel Welch. Raquel Welch plays Mrs. Wyndham Vandermark, and she played a good bitch because that's really what the character is intended to be, and she did it. She did that role well. And Bruce Thomas, I, I I swear they just cast this guy. Hey, we want like John Wesley Shipp, but we can't get him because he's busy for some reason. Let's get this guy who looks like a dead ringer. Like I could have sworn it was John Wesley Shipp from The Flash who was playing the UPS guy, but no, it was this other guy named Bruce Thomas. But yeah, the cast pretty good, pretty good cast. Has some weak spots, but there's not too many. So I would say that's definitely one of the best aspects of this film. The cinematography by Anthony B. Richmond, it's rich and vibrant and full of color and looks nice and slick and has some good polish to it. The editing by Anita Brandt Burgone is peppy. I think that's really a good way to sum it up. It's a very peppy film, so it really makes sense that the editing matches that overall peppy energy. The music by Rolf Kent is really not much of anything. I don't really remember barely any notes from it. Like I said earlier, like I said at the start of this review, you can do a lot worse than Legally Blonde. I think when it comes to rom-coms, especially rom-coms from the 2000s, this is one of the better ones. But is this one of those movies where it's sweet, it's charming, it's fun for what it is, but it's not really something that I feel has that much of an impact. Like I said, like it's a movie that I can have fun with. I like Reese Witherspoon a lot in it, but it's not really a film that I personally find to be that quotable. It's not a film that I personally find to be that consistently funny. So it's just one of those movies where I'm like, oh, it's a good time. It's bubbly. It's got a good sunny disposition. Yeah, it's one of those movies that you can watch on a rainy day and it'll pass the time and make you feel pretty good by the end of it. But it's not really the kind of film that I would personally consider to be a classic. It's that kind of movie. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Legally Blonde. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.